Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to the Unicorn Talk, where today we will be today's title of the podcast. That's the one is Heal the Unicorn, and the topic that we have for today is about cycles. Um, we'll be talking a little bit about circadian rhythms, women's monthly cycles, and seasons because all of those things are actually very important in helping us understand more of ourselves and why we change on any given day in a week. Why is it that sometimes we feel really great and really awesome and really creative and just so energetic, while other times we feel quite the opposite of that, where all we want to do is just eat chips, chocolates, and watch Netflix all day. That's my day. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And my name is Yana Kasperczak, as I forgot to mention it in the beginning. And today I have Bethany Briggs, who has just recently got married. So she's changing her name. She used to be known as Bethany Biggers, and now it's Briggs. So,
Yeah.
welcome to our chat today, our podcast today.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're welcome. Thank you for being here. I love our Wednesday calls. And
Me too.
so I think I'm just gonna start right off with the the first thing that pops into my mind. And the first thing that pops into my mind is I know before we went to the recording, to the live option. We were talking about the topic of today, and but then you mentioned that you don't, not sure what it's going to be about, what's going to happen. And so I said, just watch and see. We'll go because I know things are going to come up for you as well. So let's start off with the next thing that comes to mind, and it's circadian rhythms. Um, I'm curious, what do you, Bethany, know about circadian rhythms?
Not too much. Not. I don't really know anything about. I've heard it here and there, and I know it has to do with like your sleep cycles in a way, and just like the whole like cycle that you stay in throughout your day. But I don't know. I haven't really researched it too much. So
Mhm.
this will be learning and growing today.
Oh, me too. Because I mean, I personally have not researched all about circadian rhythms. I knew, so first of all, circadian rhythm is the 24-hour clock that every living being is running on. So it's basically our ability to recognize light and where the sun is, where the moon is during the night, and all of these and our environment and light environment that allows our body to go through specific things throughout the day and night. So there's specific times when it's best to exercise, when it's best to eat, and then the worst times to eat, the sleeping time, when it's best to go to bed, and how us not following the cues that the light is giving us affects us physically, mentally, and emotionally. People used to live without watches, without clocks. They just knew things. They lived the same way as a plant would. They were just so connected with everything. And the more that we humans started to find easier ways for all of us to be connected, we became a lot more disconnected. So, circadian rhythm, that's what that is. So I'd love to hear, when are you the most lazy throughout the day, like on a 24-hour clock?
Um, for me, let's see. Um, Probably nighttime. After like it gets dark, I feel like I'm the most laziest.
Okay, and in that nighttime, is there a specific time where you feel like you get a burst of energy and you um, do things?
If it, usually like around 7 usually is like that time for me. 7 and 8 is the time where I like will do my PM routine, as I like to call it. It's when I will do like my dishes and then clean up the house, get the little one to, getting ready for bed, kind of get myself ready for bed. Yeah. Yeah, around, I guess I'd say 7 to 9, between 7 and 9 p.m. That's a better time frame. Yeah.
Because the reason why I ask, I want to see how well that energy falls into, like, how your, I guess, routine falls into the circadian rhythms. Because I started reading this book. I think I might have mentioned it to you. It's called Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life. And I'm only not even a quarter in, because I like to take notes, highlight, and really think about what was said. So, the way that he describes, I believe it's a he, yeah, Dr. Suhas. I'm not going to pronounce the last name. I'm going to call it a K, with Michelle Seaton, and forward by Deepak Chopra. So the forward written in the front is by him, which was actually really great.
Oh yeah, I like that
Yeah.
gentleman. I followed a meditation kind of course that he did, like with mantras and stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, he's really good. MD, I think that's like a doctor label.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, not exactly sure, but I believe, yeah, that's a doctor, or like at
Yeah.
least like psychologist, but I'm pretty sure doctor.
Yeah, I don't know all these acronyms for everyone, because I've never really paid attention, never tuned in with that. Even the ones for for me as a coach, I don't know all of them, and I will learn them as I go when I need to know what they are. Otherwise, it's just information that I don't need to store in my attic, in my brain. So there is. He describes. I don't know if it would be a great idea to read them all. I would imagine some people might be interested in how the day is broken down by hours, and what kind of energy we start with, and then you can see how your energy might be actually falling into these brackets, right? There's a much deeper explanation to each of this. The day is separated into 6 segments, so there's a much deeper explanation to each and every segment. But in here, he said that he's just keeping it straightforward, which still we get to grasp all of it. So, for example, from 6 to 10 in the morning, is predominated by kapha energy, which has the qualities we associate with water. This means that the body may be a little bit dull and heavy, prone to retaining water or generating congestion. The mind and body are still waking up with the emergence of light. Of the emergence of daylight, and it needs a jolt of exercise, meditation, and food to synchronize itself with the new day. When balanced with a little bit of exercise and food at this time of the day, the kapha energy stops being dull and instead becomes a steady, calming influence on your morning work. So, in other words, and this is maybe how we can do this, because I thought like this might be a great way to do this chat, this call, where we can focus on the circadian rhythms, and maybe just mention, I think Bethany froze, she might be hopping on and off. And then maybe mentioning a little bit of the menstrual cycle that women go through, and how we can start to consider that into the whole entire existence of ours. And then the seasons, most of us are familiar with the seasons as well, because this is what we were thinking for the call today. Circadian rhythms, female cycle, and the seasons. And the seasons, most of us are quite aware of how they make us feel. and what we get from each and every season. But with this one that I just read out to all of you, the 6 to 10 a.m., this is the reason why I decided that I needed to go and get this book, because, and a physical copy, so I can highlight things in there and go back to the pages, because I remember where the pages are that are important to me. So,
I was just going to say, with that time that you have on there, it makes sense, because around between like 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., that's most of the time when I'm doing my morning meditation and yoga, and I'm getting my water and I'm getting my breakfast in me. So it makes sense. So I've been kind of following that without not even knowing what I was doing. Wow. Yeah. Clarity. Yeah.
And that right there is because you have been spending more time with yourself and connecting, right? Yeah. Connecting to everything, to the universe, and you find yourself following, and I can pretty much guarantee you'll see how all of these fit in, and you'll be like, oh my God, this is so me. And if anybody else is getting that same response, or if you want this to be you, let us know in the comments. So we know that whether it's you wanting to be this way, because this is me wanting to be this way, okay? Or you perhaps might be Bethany, who already has this routine or made all of this or most of it, and is already tuning in to the natural rhythm of the planet, right? Animals live that way, plants live that way. Yes, of course, the light that we have, the artificial light, affects it quite tremendously, but for the most part, we at least end up operating on a 22-hour clock as opposed to 24-hour clock. So keeping that into consideration as well. So with the 6 to 10, for me, because I used to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and I would start my days this way. I had a lot more energy. I would start my day with just moving around, listening to something educational. And then as I would get close to 6, that's when I would go into meditation, and I would find my day to be flowing and getting a lot more things done and feeling more alert, I guess is the way that I would describe it. But ever since I started sleeping in and waking up to in the morning whenever I felt like it, which typically was 7:30, and sometimes, or most of the time, was like 8:30. So when I would wake up, anytime after 6 o'clock, I would notice that feeling just like I didn't sleep enough. I guess that's the way that I would describe it, that I'm still tired and just want to go to sleep. And when this information came across from the women that I was talking to, she shared a little bit with me. It started to make sense why I was feeling a certain way and wanting to go back to waking up early, but still loving this lazy start to the day, even though a lot less would get done.
Yeah, and I can agree, because the times that I don't wake up, because I wake up between usually 8 and sometimes 10, but if I wake up later than 10, I notice like I feel like my day is off. And I'll be like, oh, I slept in, but then I'm like, oh, I just like feel like there's something wrong, like, going on that's just like off. And that makes sense why I feel that way then. Yeah.
It almost sounds like your body and your mind intuitively are telling you that what you have missed is one of the important parts of the cycle. So almost like, when people go into coma and then they wake up and it's like weeks or days or even months later, they feel like they've missed out and they've lost something. So that's what it sounds like to me, that feeling of loss and feeling like disoriented, that like I'm missing something, a part of yourself that you did not get to experience in this water feeling kind of a time.
Yeah, I agree, because water to me is very healing. Water's always been healing, and I think that's why. Yeah. Well, hey, clarity.
Yeah, love it. Love that you can continue to get clarity. almost every single day.
Yeah, definitely. I
Awesome.
think it's necessary. Yeah.
So the next one on here, I feel like might also be like like I said, I think each and every one was going to be light bulb, and anybody else listening who gets these light bulbs, chat away like as much as you can share with us and what your experiences and how each and every one of these applies to you. That would be greatly appreciated because then that way we get to learn from you as well, um, and you get to be heard. I don't know about you, but I personally don't know anyone who does not like to be heard. Everyone I know wants to be heard, whether they admit it or not, because when they are heard, there's certain like fireworks start to happen on the inside. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
love seeing those fireworks. So the next one is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's predominated by Pitta energy, which has qualities we associate with fire. During this time of the day, both the mind and the digestion are going full steam. It's a good time for your largest meal of the day and to do your most intense work. Your body doesn't need exercise at this time of the day because you are already wide awake. Moreover, the body needs to keep the blood flow concentrated around your digestive tract so your body can do the work of converting food into energy. The Pitta energy also makes people a little more passionate and short tempered. You might say that your noontime crankiness is all about low blood sugar, but something else is at work here too. And that's where he stops. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean? What else is at work here? Come on, continue. But no, it's just period. And then on to the next thing. So from here, the main point is you're you're on fire, basically. Right? This is when you feel passionate, you feel short tempered with fire, right? With love and passion. And crankiness, which is a low blood sugar, which I find interesting. If this is supposed to be your biggest meal of the day, why
Yeah.
low blood sugar? Right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how those two are connected.
Right. Well, because maybe like some people don't have that meal then, because like a lot of times you're working a lot, on like 9 to 5 jobs. And sometimes I don't know though. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious too, because
I
you would
think
think,
he's sharing with how each of the segments, because it's broken down into six pieces of 6 parts, if I remember, how each of these segments actually is or should be. Which means that if you're eating the biggest meal of your day, and yet your low blood sugar, like not sure how those connect. If anybody else knows the answers or thinks um, they do, you probably do. But let us know.
yeah, like let us know, please. Because
um,
yeah, because you would think like after eating your biggest meal, like you're gonna like the wide awake, most intense work, passion, and love makes sense. And
yeah,
honestly, that's between 10 and 2 is when I do all my work usually. And that's when, yeah, the most passion is there. So it makes sense. Wow.
this is when I do most of my calls
Yeah.
between this
Yeah,
time.
that's
Maybe for that
right.
specific reason, without the recognizing that that's what it was, but because connecting with people and helping people and coaching people is what I love doing. So it, I guess it would make sense to use this time on passion projects
Yeah.
since people makes people feel a little more passionate. Right, which means you get the best version of me. Those of you that have calls with me around this time, and yeah, so
Yeah.
your body is going full steam at this time. I think this one is pretty straightforward, and it makes perfect sense to me, and it sounds like it's making perfect sense to you as well, because you said this is how it kind of fits into your day as well, and how you're showing up. Now the next one is 2 to 6. It's predominated by Vata energy, which has qualities we associate with air. It's a time for quick reflexes and quick thinking. This is also a time of the day that leads some people to get distracted or dehydrated. Yeah. If you haven't eaten enough in the morning and at noon, this light and quick energy can become shakiness and anxiety, which is why people reach for snacks and coffee at this time in the day. You
Mhm.
want to have you want to have grounded yourself with food and exercise earlier in the day, or this lightness will carry you away and making it impossible to concentrate. The body's natural energy comes in fits and starts in the late afternoon, and you may find that you need more rest between tasks. You want to stay hydrated and minimize distractions. So, how is that one fitting in for you?
Yeah, I agree because between those times I do feel like less energized and I kind of just want to like relax, I guess, a little bit, but I still like thinking about it more. Let's see here. Because between 2 and 6, usually we have consultations around between 5 and 6. But I'm always like, ugh, like I just want to stay at home and I make dinner. But yeah, I this makes sense though. It's I guess because I've heard like at 2 p.m. is like a great time to take a nap. Like it's a great time to have between 2 and 3 to have a little nap. And if I do have a nap, I do have it between these times.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
guess it would make sense too, because if it's associated with air
Yeah.
and it's time for quick reflexes and quick thinking.
Yeah.
So, kind of like on the fly, quick decision making. I know that that one is definitely for me. This is the time when, like, as I was reading it, and was my second time reading, so some of these, like the way that the sentences are formed, didn't always make sense to me. Kind of threw me off a little bit. But when he was talking about um, basically, if you didn't exercise in the morning and you didn't have your meal, right? So if you didn't exercise in the morning, didn't have your meal in the morning, and didn't have your big meal at lunchtime, that chances are by about this time, so 2 o'clock, you might start to feel a little anxious and um, it's almost like because I've done this. I've been here, and this is exactly the time that it happens. I'm like uneasy, and I can't sit still, and feeling like the anxiety starts to come up, and I remember, and because I already learned that if I don't eat, because sometimes I get too caught up in what I'm doing in my passion projects, like I mentioned, that I schedule so many calls in these times that I don't even leave space in between these calls for myself to even have a snack. So this is where typically around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, I start to feel anxious, and I'm like, and this is when I remember that I didn't eat anything, and that's why I'm feeling that way. And it would make sense because if the body is hungry throughout the day and you're moving and getting things done, right? Whether it's physically or mentally, you're still burning calories. Obviously, more when you're physically moving, and then the body goes through like a crash, sugar crash.
Right. The blood, yeah, this I feel like this would be a better time for that blood sugar crash thing, but
Yeah, and some
agree.
people take a nap, right? When you feel like some people reach for a coffee around this time.
Maybe that's why, because like during that time you kind of get that low blood sugar, and then 2 to 6 p.m. you get that crash in a way. Maybe that's like, leading into it more. Like when you don't eat in the morning, you don't eat at noon, you get that blood sugar crash, of course. Or if you
Yeah,
do, yeah, I don't know. It's a little confusing, but I guess I'm just trying to piece it together. But because like
yeah.
between 2 and 6, if that's when you feel like you have lower energy, maybe that's where it'd be was from the low blood sugar.
I'm not sure if he's mentioning the lower energy because it's air, it's more like you're quick and you don't overthink too much, but the anxiety comes to those that have not grounded themselves. Because when he says
Right.
you have to have, you want to have grounded yourself with food and exercise earlier in the day, or this lightness will carry you away. You
Maybe
feel
that's
lighter at that time.
right. Maybe that's why I put lower energy, because that's what came to mind when you said that. Because anxiety for me is like a lower
Yeah.
energy.
Oh yeah, because
So
you're probably thinking of like the seven energy levels, right?
yeah,
Which is
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, so the like those of you that are listening, watching, I really want to hear if this resides, because for me that would be also not having to go and do the research that how many people like daily life or the energy how it's showing up throughout the day um, goes like goes well with this one, that it fits in, that this schedule that's out here fits in. I would imagine it does. That's why there's a written book about it by a doctor.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
would love to hear too. Yeah.
And if not, then that means one of these things. I mean, you probably would be able to tell what it actually means, because as we're going through it, that's what I'm noticing that we're doing, is kind of like sharing why this feeling might be here. So recognizing that in the afternoon, if I'm feeling like really shaky or anxious, um, that's because I have done something wrong. I don't like to use the word wrong, or I missed a step, or I missed something in the morning, so I didn't do something. Whether it be waking up late, right, which means after 6 in the morning. To me personally, that's considered to be late. Knowing that in the morning it's the best time, you'll hear why. Um, and not exercising or sitting down and not moving at all, right? Or not walking the dog, not eating, not drinking enough water. What else? Not having my lunch, skipping lunch, right? That's another one. And avoiding doing things that I am passionate about in the time like between 10 and 2 p.m.
Right.
Because when we do things that we're passionate about, we feel a sense of accomplishment and achievement by the end of the day. But when we don't, we tend to feel the other way around, where we don't feel like we're good enough,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And
So,
I agree, because on the days that I don't go with my cycle, because for me, I'm like, wow, I actually follow this cycle and I didn't even realize. Um, and when I don't follow my normal cycle, that's when I feel off and I get those, those lows. And yeah, that makes sense, man.
now the next one is probably going to make sense to you as well. Next one is 6 to 10 p.m. 6 to 10 p.m. is the time for energy to switch back to kapha, when the body gets to be a little bit dull and heavy again, which is water, preparing for sleep as the sun goes down. As soon as you get to 6 p.m., the digestion is already slowing down. So this is the wrong time to overload your body with calories. So what I'll mention at this point right here is what he mentions in the book is when they did a test on mice, when they would feed mice during their sleep cycle,
Hmm.
and all of them gained weight. So for those that are into weight loss, like most of us are, or weight reduction, as I like to refer to it, because typically when we use the word loss, we have a tendency to go and find it again. And I will be a testament to that one.
Same here, yeah.
So until I can get these words engraved into my forehead, my memory, it's weight reduction, and saying it as weight reduction all the time. That is when I will go back to trying to reduce my weight. But until then, so in other words, those of you that like to snack in the evening, uh, when we're watching things, when we're relaxing, and we feel like we've done a good job at not eating well the whole day, so we deserve a reward. Speaking of myself here, honestly, and then we'll find ourselves binge eating in the evening. Very high chance that it happens after 6 o'clock, and we find ourselves in this battle of not losing anything, and then when we do, finding it again. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just gonna say for this, because lately, so the last like month and a half, I've been stopping, like I have my dinner and I stop eating between 5 and 7 p.m. And like I know the other viewers don't, but I battled with binge eating a lot in the past. And it's just been more recent that I've got it as I get tongue tied, under control. And I mean, there's some days it's like, oh, I want to eat something, but I use my self control and my self discipline to be like, no, let's just keep doing what we're doing. And then I take that into like, okay, well, if I feel hungry, I just need to eat a little bit more in the times that I want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's interesting you say that about digestion, because yeah, I mean, I just recently lost since October 30 pounds, 34 pounds, and I'm like I'm where I want to be with it, and it's because I changed my eating cycle, and I'm aligning it. Wow.
Yeah, and that is actually huge. So,
Yeah.
for anyone who is listening who wants to reduce their weight, just see what happens. Just do this little test. If not for yourself, then for us, and then let us know. Sometimes we can do things for others that we will not do for ourselves, right? So
Right.
if you want to do this for me or for Bethany, let us know. But do this little challenge for us.
Yeah.
For let's do 14 days, 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, for 14 days, don't eat past 6:30 in the afternoon,
Mhm.
in the evening. And take your measurements, take your weight, your size, your inches, write it down, and then do this challenge. And let us know what the change was in your body, right? And I'm not just talking about the physical body, I'm talking about the mental body as well, the mind, um,
Mm.
your soul. If you want to talk about your soul, how is your soul feeling? How is your energy feeling? How is your mind feeling? How are you feeling? Just not eating past 6:30. And in saying this challenge, I'm going to give this challenge to myself starting, I guess, today, since I said it. Because if we put things off, we're less likely to do them.
Yeah. And for me, since I've done this and I've been practicing this, I'll have to say, like, I can attest, I feel more clear minded. I feel more focused. I don't have a desire to even want to binge eat. Like, yes, of course, there's some times where I'm like, it gets to me, but it's just like learning to push past it. But like, I used to constantly want to eat. And now I'm just like, I'm good. So it's mind changing. It really is. And then it alters the way you present your physical self too. And I feel better about myself. I feel like I have more drive. So just as like a testimony of what it could do,
Yeah.
that's yeah,
I
that's what
wonder,
I've experienced.
and I wonder who else desires those
Right.
feelings, right? And those experiences. Um, what I'm hearing is that the reward for you, connecting to what you said earlier as well with the eating. It sounds like for you,
Yeah.
it's a reward to be disciplined and
Yeah.
to what was the other one you said when you say no to yourself?
Uh, self control.
Yeah, I
Self
think that's the one
self
you
control.
mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's like when you that self control and that to you is the reward enough for not eating, that it's more powerful than rewarding yourself with food.
Yeah, and it's that healthy denial too of being like, yeah,
Absolutely.
because I used to reward myself with food, and now I reward myself in other ways that help me physically and mentally.
Yeah. Some
Yeah.
of us punish ourselves with food and then reward ourselves with food, right?
Yeah, and I used to do both. Yeah.
Me
I used to
too.
yeah.
Me too. Like when I wouldn't eat, those of you that might have heard my money story, if not, this might be the first time. Just a tiny little part of it. I used to not eat from the time I would wake up because I would be extremely anxious. I was at that point, I didn't have a job, so I felt like I was worthless. And being a mother was not enough for me. It did not bring self worth to me. It actually made me feel worse because I didn't feel like I was a good example for my kids as part of it. So what I used to basically do without recognizing that I was just doing that um, subconsciously, punishing myself with food, where I would not eat pretty much from the moment I would wake up until about 5 or 6 in the evening, and then eat then. Okay. Now, reading this and understanding what happens after 6 and understanding that now I have turned my eating into a certain habit where I would be eating everything I possibly can in the evening at 6 o'clock. And the reason why I would be doing that is because my husband was the only one that was bringing an income in. And it's not from anything that he ever said or did. It was just me and the way that I was brought up, seeing that if I wasn't bringing anything in, and again, it's not even something that my parents put in there, it's the movies and things that I watched that allowed me to see that my worth, and I guess the way a lot of us were raised, that your worth is based on how much money you make, right? I've heard this phrase a couple of times, right? That your worth is based on how much money you make. So because I wasn't making any money, I was worthless, right? That is the the record playing in my head constantly. So when my husband was home, I allowed myself to eat and feel like I would relax, that I've been good this whole entire time because I wasn't making money. And now in the evening, typically I wouldn't be making money either. So it's almost like the work schedule where I wasn't eating during the hours when I'm supposed to be bringing money in, and I would be allowed to eat when I would be home after work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I gained a lot of weight. I gained a lot of weight. What's a lot? I'm 5'1" and I was 188 pounds. So you do the math. How heavy
Right.
that is.
And for me, it's interesting 188 because that's the weight I was at back in October when I did that my healthy living challenge. I weighed 188 pounds. And now I weigh like 156 pounds. Thank you.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
I was
Thank
clapping.
you.
Those of you that
Yeah,
can't see
yeah.
the book in my hand.
But yeah, but just I don't know, just hearing the cycle, it just makes sense why it just like came off naturally.
Yeah. And I like the word they use naturally because I was going against nature and I didn't even know it. And this is why I like to do these types of calls that where I realize these things as I go, just like I would in a coaching session. And you guys might even notice that I'm coaching myself through here without even, I just such a habit, right? Um, so it makes, I didn't even finish reading it. So what I'll do is I'll read it from the beginning again because we just stopped at overloading our body with calories. So that's what I was doing. My body was already shut down. Doesn't matter if I ate before or not. My body was already empowered down, ready for bed, getting ready for bed. And I was overloading it with everything and anything I possibly could. Like if you see the layers of the food, if I get to see the layers, if we were see through and get to see the layers, I probably would not be putting all those foods together. But it makes perfect sense why we would be gaining weight after such a time
Right.
because our bodies are designed to do certain things throughout the day. There's even a time when our skin renews itself,
Yeah.
right? Um, so again, that challenge. Let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
do this challenge, which means that I gotta post this video today, upload it today. Why not? Because sometimes I wait a couple of
Right.
weeks to upload them, but I'll upload the video today so I can myself start the challenge. Um, and we'll see where it brings us. So let me read it from the beginning again.
Yeah.
6 to 10 p.m. In case those people that are like to take notes and go through the whole thing that's read out to them. So 6 to 10 p.m. is a time for the energy to switch back to kapha, where the body gets to be a little bit dull and heavy again, preparing for sleep as the sun goes down. As soon as you get to 6 p.m., the digestion is already slowing down. So this is the wrong time to overload your body with calories, which means by 6, it's already slowing down even before that. Your mind is moving from a quick to distractible, like when you're distracted, thinking style into something more steady. And some people say they prefer to stay at their desks after 6 p.m. That's me, because they love that feeling of steady energy. But it's easy to overwork your mind, the mind, making sleep impossible later when you need it. Instead, it's best to eat a very light meal early in this period and spend the rest of the time doing only light work. By the end of this period, you'll want to be ready for bed, which means 10 p.m. And that's why I said 6:30, because I want to give that 30-minute window to close out your day with a light meal. Um, I'm curious, what does light meal mean to everyone, but to you? What does a light meal mean to you, Bethany?
A light meal for me is because I usually have my heavier meal for like lunch slash breakfast. It's more like brunch for me when I have this meal, like lunch, breakfast, lunch. But for my lightest meal, it's usually like a vegetable, and then because lately I've been eating vegetarian, I have beans of this, like a portion of beans and like a vegetable, and that's like a light meal for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say for me, thank you for sharing, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, for me, a light meal would be soup or salad, which is basically not meat because meat is considered to be heavy and it takes a lot more to digest. Um, so I can see why that would get in the way of weight loss as well, or weight reduction. See, again, I'm not ready to do it myself yet because I continue to
Yeah.
use the magical word in the wrong combination. Um, so yeah, so to me, that's what a light meal is, something that will go through quickly. Um, yeah, other than that, I definitely agree that 6 to 10 p.m., that's when I tend to feel very creative. I guess that's the way I would describe it, where I would feel that steady energy, which is allows the creativity to come in and stay. And it typically does end at around 10:30, I would say. Maybe even a
Yeah.
little earlier, because sometimes it can push it to 10:30.
I would agree lately, yeah. But like
Yeah.
10:30, 11, I'm just like in full on like relaxed like mood because I usually go to bed by midnight.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little later, but usually by midnight.
Yeah, and it also makes sense that because it's easy to overwork the mind. So that's what I end up doing on those times is I overwork my mind. And those of you that are entrepreneurs, you're probably gonna find this very true. Is that when we do tend to stay until 10 or 10:30 or even 11 o'clock and work and overload the mind, because even though if we're writing things and creating things, we're still working the mind. Um, that we might find ourselves for the next day or maybe a couple of days not doing very much throughout the day at all because the mind is still overloaded. And what also happens is it may become a habit
Mm,
where we recognize that, ooh, this is the best time for me to work because this is when I just flow.
right.
But and that's when it becomes a habit. But if we allow ourselves to ignore that time in terms of using it for work, and we rest. Now, watching TV also does overwork the mind, but it's in a different way to overwork in the mind. So doing something else, like going outside, and it's only from 6 o'clock, right? You can do the same like 6:30, where it can be the cutoff for technology and work.
Yeah.
Those are the main ones that would be affecting the mind and overworking the mind. So if you're wanting to do that challenge, the double challenge, where no work, no eating, and no technology after 6:30 p.m. Until the next day, I would say probably 10 a.m. That might be tough for many people, but let's start maybe 6 a.m. might be easier for people. um, so let's do that challenge. Add a little bit to it, where no eating, no work, and no technology after 6:30. And let's get creative and see what we can come up with in terms of what activities we can do after that time, after 6:30, that will busy the mind, but at the same time allows the mind to relax. So I'll just share a few that come to mind right now, which will be walk, listen to music, play a game, like a board game with your partner, with friends, or with your family if you have children. Maybe make a meal for the next day, right? Clean up, tidy up. Yeah, that could be a great time. And allowing our kids to do the same thing, because if it's affecting our minds like that, why would we not apply that to our kids? So I know my husband will be happy to hear that. If I say no technology after 6:30, because we don't even use any technology when we eat anymore. We used to. But little by little, I got my husband to listen and understand what happens when we watch something and when we eat something at the same time. So, yeah. What else? That's an easy, chill activity.
I mean,
Talk.
yeah, I was gonna say like yoga, like a yin yoga though, not like a vinyasa where it's active power yoga, but like a yin relaxation restorative yoga.
Like stretching, right?
Yeah, more like stretching, but like deep stretching.
Mm, yeah. Read a book.
Or even
Since I'm
meditation.
reading one.
All right.
What else? Organize, declutter.
Yeah.
Again, that could also excite. I know myself, I can really get excited with that and do that. But you know what? The next morning, because I'm trying to now remember how would my next morning be, I would be very energized and get a lot of things done as well, because I didn't overwork my mind by thinking of the specific object that I have in front of me, what to do with it, to throw it out or to keep it or to donate it. 3 options. And then the fourth option is, where do I put it? Because everything needs to have a specific spot. And if I don't have a specific place and spot for it, which means that nothing else will be going on top of it, that's what a specific spot means. It's almost like, I guess another way to describe it is if you've seen like a mechanic's board when they have their tools hanging, right? Or a carpenter, when they have their tools hanging on their particle board, they have their tools outlined so they know what goes where. They have a specific spot, which means nothing else can be covering it unless it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So when I've done things like that, which I have done quite a bit because I love decluttering and organizing, yeah, like it just soothes me, and I typically keep technology out of it, because when I have technology in there, then I don't feel relaxed in doing these organizing activities, because I have stuff on the floor that I'll be doing that with later. Yeah. So anything else that came up to mind that would be something else that could be fire pit outside with the family, right?
Yeah, family time.
The thought started with chopping wood. Maybe some people like to chop their own wood to put in the fire pit. So it's kind of like mindless activities. That I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes maybe even reading a book might be a little too stimulating for some people, depending on the book. But for most people, it's
Right.
relaxing because as we read, we find ourselves kind of like drifting away into like, oh, I can't take anymore, and I need to go to sleep, and then just fall asleep. Um, yeah. Okay. So let's quickly move on to the next one as I'm keeping an eye on the clock. Um, and again, I'd love to hear anybody else's ways, or even what we've said. If you wouldn't mind just typing it out and putting it in the comments down below, so anybody else can find them easily as well. And for yourselves, you can always come back as a reference, like note taking. That's what I like to do on some videos. I take notes on these videos, right? Comment,
Yeah.
comment on the videos that I watch. Um, so the next one is 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then there's one more left after that. I just wanted to let everybody know. So 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is predominated by Pitta energy again. The body is certainly on fire, but in a very different way than it was during the day. Now the brain wants to generate ever deeper sleep cycles in an effort to rest and cleanse itself. While daytime Pitta energy focuses on digestion, the nighttime Pitta slows the digestive process. Instead, your liver and your adrenal glands go to work. Your body is turning that raw nutrition into the hormones and enzymes it needs to function the next day. If you go to sleep early in this cycle, you can get that Pitta energy working for your body. But many people stay awake working until midnight or later. They say they get a second wind and feel suddenly more alert after 10:30. Very true. They don't know why, but I know that it's that they like to ride that Pitta wave. Staying awake late at night doesn't mean you are a natural night owl. It just means that the urge to sleep is a little bit like a train. It pulls in and then leaves the station at a predictable time. Many so called night owls would cure themselves of their insomnia, as well as many other health problems, if they would just get on the train by 10:30. If you do this, your body will thank you in countless ways. So, how would we like to add the train rides to the challenge? The challenge is just like expanding. It might be too much, so some people might want to do one thing at a time, focusing on one main
Yeah.
thing. It's just a different kind of challenge. That the reason why I'm bringing all of these up and making them challenges, you can do all as one or one by one, is that you. I want you to have a choice.
Yeah.
I want you to choose what challenge do you want to do the most, and then why do you want to do that challenge? Because that why can really help you to continue with that challenge. Because for 2 weeks, and then after that, you can do the challenge again and again. So meaning continue. But the challenge would be is going to bed at 10 o'clock.
I was gonna say for me, I like going to bed between 10 and 12 a.m. because I go to sleep at 12 a.m. and I personally do not want to go to sleep at 10 because then it's like my son goes to bed. I have like 30 minutes to like do something like relaxation or like spend a little time, like alone time with my husband. So I was gonna do like a time frame between 10 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Mhm.
Sometimes I go to sleep earlier than that. It just depends on the day.
Okay. Again, the choice is yours.
Yeah.
But I wanted to
Yeah.
mention that when he said 10:30, so they say they get a second wind and feel suddenly more alert after 10:30, which means that at 10:30, that is when we enter that fire state,
Right.
right? Because in the morning it was your digestion is full stream, whereas here it almost sounds like your adrenal glands and liver. So I guess maybe the mind is more alert. Yeah. Because this is 10 p.m. and this is when you're also very creative, right? And you're passionate. So 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then that same place we can enter at 10:30 in the evening.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see
Yeah.
it.
And then when he said staying awake late at night doesn't mean you're a natural night owl. I remember when I did that sleep course.
Yeah.
Um, I I kept thinking that I was a night owl, and then recognized that no, technically I'm not, because I've been waking up and going to bed at wrong times. And he wasn't talking about circadian rhythms, but for some reason I thought that there should be a certain cutoff time, and I decided that for me, the bedtime was we were doing 9:30 or 10, and maybe 10:30 the latest if we were staying up and watching something. So that would be like the weekend time. And I remember that having these, and my wake up time was 5:30 on the weekday and 6 in the morning on the weekends. And I remember I felt so clear. That's the way I would describe it. I felt clear and energized. And I
Yeah.
didn't know why until literally just now.
Yeah, it's clarity right there.
Yeah, this is what clarity looks like. I like it. And the
Right.
aha moment, right? That makes sense. It makes sense to me now. So I'm going to be catching that train, and I know it's going to be challenging for me because I got in the habit of staying up with my daughter on the weekends, like Friday night and Saturday night, or Saturday night and Sunday night, where it's been fun because I get to relax and do nothing but watch TV. But it does affect my next day tremendously, where I I feel like I'm sleeping the whole entire day, and I feel like that I feel awake by around 2 o'clock. Yeah. Um, so let's do the last one. 2 to 6 a.m. is another Veda period. Here, your sleep becomes lighter and dreams become more vivid. Yeah. The body is preparing for the active day cycle. If you've ever been awakened in these early hours, you know that you wake up instantly feeling lightheaded instead of groggy. It's the time of quick reflexes and quick thinking again. And some people have the kind of insomnia where they wake up during this period with racing thoughts. I'll talk about combating insomnia in a later chapter. But the thing to remember is that it's easier to wake up in the morning before 6 a.m. than it is after 6 a.m. when the kappa energy takes over again. Um, for me, I remember I had a lot of racing thoughts when I would wake up at this time. Kind of insomnia where they wake up during this period with racing thoughts. I used to wake up every single morning around 5 in the morning with massive anxiety for, I think, almost 2 years nonstop. Um, and and I was like the most alert I would be throughout the whole entire day. It's like the jolt of, it's almost like somebody shot that adrenaline into my heart, and I would be up right away, and I can't go back to sleep. So if I continue to lay in my bed, this is when these racing thoughts would completely take over my existence, and it would be harder to. I would want to get out of bed. I want to sleep more, but I can't sleep because of these racing thoughts. So I can't fall asleep, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then once I learned to just get out of bed and go lay somewhere else if I want to sleep, that change of scenery allowed me to actually sleep if I wanted to, or at least the anxiety would disappear. Yeah, so 2 to 6 a.m. And this is where waking up at 5:30 in the morning for me worked out perfectly. And quick thinking again. So that was the same as 2 to 6. Oh yeah, so 2 to 6, 2 to 6, and then 10 p.m. to, interesting. Because now that I'm looking at the breakdown, we have 6 to 10 a.m. and then 6 to 10 p.m., 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So it's broken down to exact numbers. Those of you that love numbers, and perhaps might see synchronicity in numbers and how even the Ayurveda, I think that's how it's pronounced, how it's broken down into 6 segments, and that these 6 segments are kind of like the opposites of each other. Yeah, you're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh my goodness, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Something came up for you?
Yeah, I was just saying like it's like 4 hours, in between each one. And it's like a cycle. Yeah, it makes sense. And with some of the things that I've been like dealing with eternally and like just doing naturally, it just like, wow. Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah. And it makes sense now. I'm sure, and I hope it makes a lot more sense of how we are showing up daily, and how that is playing a role of how we continue to show up, right? Our cycles, the circadian rhythms, or Ayurveda, what is it called? Let me quickly, Ayurvedic day. It's spelled Ayurvedic. So I guess Ayurvedic. And how that is affecting us in our day-to-day life. If we are going against the cycle, because I know I've become more aware of where I'm making, I don't want to say mistakes, but where I am making mistakes that I will start to eliminate. And this is why I put up all of these challenges, and you pick which one you want, because there's so many different ways of how we can start to make these shifts. It doesn't have to be all at once, because for some of us, like myself, there is quite a few that I would want to shift and change. And it's more like going back to the previous way of how I was doing things, and now it's making sense of why it was working and what I was doing exactly that helped me to feel that same way. So yeah, and then in terms of really quickly of how the female menstrual cycle can affect our daily life and schedules and how we are showing up. So really quickly, it's basically broken down into 4 weeks. And again, those of you that love numbers, you have these hours that are broken down into 4 hours, right? And 24 hours. And the women's cycle is 4 weeks. Now, I'm not an expert on women's cycles. I'm just recalling from my memory the things that I've heard in this book called Rise, Sister, Rise, where she was talking about the cycle, how it's broken down into weeks, segments. And there's weeks when we are the most creative, and that typically is the week of when we start our cycle, when we get our period, and that whole week we're like birthing ideas, right? For some women, it could be the week after. So not everyone is exactly the same, but there is similarities, right? So for example, the creative process, when we're the most creative, can start halfway through the bleeding days and then continue that way, right? Because especially when the first couple of days are really draining or maybe even painful, then of course, gotta wait until that distraction is gone, and then we just start to flow. Like we might find ourselves in the zone and just creating and having all these awesome ideas. And again, I don't know where exactly the cycles fall, but the other one that stood out to me the most was when we just hate everything and don't want anything. Some people would call it the bitchy part, when we're just so
Right. Yeah.
right? Again, for some people, it falls exactly on kind of like a couple of days before the period starts and a couple of days in. So seeing where you fall in.
That's how it is for me. It's like right before and like right in the beginning. And then I hit more of like the creative and like the loving, like passion.
Yeah.
But lately I've been trying to push through it on those times where like I have those moments of like of anger, and I just like use it. I use it to fuel my creativity and my passion, and I just like to not let it hold me back, and just like I guess just go for it, and just because sometimes I find my most growing times during those times of being like the day before and the first couple days, because then stuff comes up for me and I work through it and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
See, and
then
it sounds like what happens is also part of the cycle where you're preparing to release, right?
yes.
And you go through the time uncovering what it is that you are ready to release, to work on, and you work through it in your own ways where you use that for creativity.
Right.
And that's the best way to go about it, actually, right? That's
Yeah.
the one that you're continuing to, you turn this frustration, this energy that you have, into something that fuels your passion,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
And it took me a long time to get here, but I'm here.
and it's just finding that footing,
Yeah.
finding that balance, and questioning yourself and allowing yourself to be heard by yourself and not punish yourself for what comes up. And when other people are involved, not taking things personally can definitely be challenging. But by now, you know this, that what comes up and what we think about the other person, what we want to say to the other person, is typically meant for us. And instead of saying them, pause and dissect what's in there, what's in that phrase, and what does that phrase mean to you? How would you take that phrase? And that's exactly what we're really trying to say to ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, not all the time, because not in every situation, because sometimes the other person might actually be in the wrong and they just don't know because they haven't awakened
Yeah.
enough, right? So again, that's also could be a signal. I know what it is to me, that what I'm saying in my response and my thinking is not something that they're ready to hear, because it's meant to be for me. So what does that really mean? So anyways, there's that. And then there's also 1 week in the cycle where we are, I guess the best way to describe it is we're kind of like in a cloud where if the meteoroid came and hit the earth, we would not be as panicky as we would have been. We're more like calm and relaxed and like in a zen, and not very much disturbs us. So there's a week where we go through that as well. Pretty much every single month. Does that week sound familiar to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep. Yep. And it's around that time of usually like right before.
You're muted again. Somebody keeps
It's because
messaging.
I have a grocery pickup and we're running a little bit behind, and I have someone hitting me up, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's pick it up really quickly.
Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. It's
Yeah, I can hear you now. Now you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. but yeah, I it's usually the before the cycle. Before, yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing for me. It's before the cycle. And as for the fourth week, I don't remember 100%, but I have a feeling that it's kind of like a mishmash of the two other weeks where we are
Right,
creative
right,
and not so creative.
right.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's wrap this up right now because I know you gotta go, so I will hold you hostage here. But I wanted to
Right.
say thank you, Bethany,
Thank you very much.
for being on here with me and discussing the circadian rhythms.
Of course.
And yeah, I love to hear everybody's feedback on um, what stood out to you the most out of this whole entire call today, this video today, or this audio, wherever you're listening. And if you like what you're hearing or seeing, or both perhaps, then please subscribe to my channel. And that if you're on, I was going to say if you're on Netflix, probably are, but if you're on YouTube, hit the bell notification button so you can subscribe and then get notified when I post these videos or these audios. I'm not sure if the podcast platform allows that, where you can be notified each and every time. But if it does, please do that as well if you want to stay in the loop of what we're talking about each and every week, because it is different each and every time.
Definitely.
But it
Yeah.
all revolves around physical and mental health,
Yes. And
right?
it's
Well-being.
always empowering. Yep.
So
All
thank you. And until next time.
Thank you for having me. Until next time.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Bye.